For the UI, the first thing you will see is the main page, where a user will be prompted to log in an account. You can see three buttons: the login, the register, and the about. In the about page, it contains information about the developers. For the register page, once the user clicks register, he or she will be prompted to enter his name, age, number, and email to create an account. Once an account has been registered, the user can now log in. Once logged in, the user can see the different converters: the money converter, the weight converter, and the height converter. For the weight converter, we can see a picker where users can select a different conversion for pound to kilogram and kilogram to pound. And also, there is an entry box where user can enter their desired input value. And then there are 5 buttons, which are the convert, which converts the value inputted. And then there is the view history, where users can see the history of their conversions. And then there's also the 2 other converters, which are the money converter and the height converter. And lastly, the last button is the home button. This UI is similar to the other 2, where they also have their pickers and an entry value. For the money converter, the only difference from the other 2 is that in the picker, there are more items to choose from than the weight and the height converter.
Welcome everybody, I am John Caguicla and I will be discussing the code of the conversion body application. First, we will be needing a database for the application, and first we need to declare the databases. The first database is the user database, second is the money database, height database, and the weight database. And then we will get and set the data of the databases using repository. The first repository is the file database, and then the second is the money database, second is the height database, and the third is the weight database. And then we will be declaring the repository that will be used for the other codes. So this is the code for the database of the user profile, and this is the code for the manipulation of the database. First, you need to reference your database to your user profiles to the model, since this model folder consists of the person CS or the database of the user profile. You need to reference through using solution name and then the dot folder. Next is you need to establish a connection into the database. This is the code to connect to the database. And then this void, and this is a simple validation for if an entry box has an input in it or not. And this is the code to connect input of the user for the new profile. This code right here from the name itself, get the recent people, is to get the data of the recent user. And then this is the code to get all the data of all people. This code is for updating when every time you add a new user profile in the database. So this is the front end code of the login page where you can add user or add a new profile. Then this is the back end code of the login page. This void right here is the button for when you click that button, you will create a new profile. And this is the code where when you click the button, you can add a new profile in the database. And there is a simple validation for the fill up in the sign up or register page. Right after you log in and use your profile, you will then proceed to the second page where you can see the features of the conversion body application, and this is the front end code for it. The back end code, I'll be discussing the code of the money page or the money converter feature of the application. So this right here is for the convert button, and every time you convert, you will add the newest converted database to the wait database, and this is to update the money database. This result right here is to get the data of the result and input it to the database through text. This code is the database code of the money database. First, you need to put the library or reference the database of the history money using this code. Then, just like from the user profile database, you need to establish a connection to the database. And then this code right here is when every time a user inputs or converts another data, then adds up to the database. And this code right here is from the feature was discussed earlier, where a user can view the history of the data that was recently converted by the user. This is the backend code of the view history of the money database, where the user can see all the previous converted data that was done by the user. Since we will be using the database, we first then reference the database through this code, and then we need to get all the data that was done by the user and then output it through this code. This is the database code of the height, so that the system can store the recent or previous converted data of the same from the database code. This is the code where the database can be tweaked. You need to access the database using this code and then establish a connection between the database. This is to add the new data of the height that the user converted. This code right here to access and get all the data of the history of the converted height, and to display database using this code. Almost similar code with the money conversion. There's a button code here, so that every time the user convert something, this code can store data and store it to the database. This code is to update the database. Lastly, for the code of the wait, this code for the database of the wait, same with the height and money and profile. This is the code to tweak the database, access the database. Then it has the same logic of having a public void, add new history, so the system could add a new data of the weight converted, access all the history. Same with the height, just the difference is the conversion items and repository number, which was different from code earlier, code where every time the user converts something, adds to the database, and this is to update the database. So that's it. Once again, I am John Lord Caguicla with my colleague
Earl Joshua Lubrico.
and this are our application titled Conversion Body.